From Revelation 3:2, we read, "Wake up and strengthen the things that remain, which were about to die, for I have not found your deeds completed in the sight of my God." It's a Sunday morning, and I'm feeling pretty good. Worship is about to begin in 10 minutes. I just finished warming up the choir, and I'm making my way up the stairs to the first floor. Feels like a lot of stairs. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm wearing shorts, but not necessarily worried about it. What I'm really worried about is making sure to start the gathering music on time. Because, see, this is a very special Sunday. Because my high school English teacher is preaching. I have a bounce in my step as I meander into the sanctuary. I smile and happily wave hello to everyone as I make my way up to the piano, and then I realize, oh no! Forgot my sheet music. Must have left it in the choir room. But it's all good. It's all good. I stare down at my Mickey watch, and I realize it's 9:45 in the afternoon. I still have 3 minutes before worship starts. I turn around, head out towards the choir room, on my way taking note of how many people there are in the sanctuary and how they all look familiar, but I don't really recognize them, except for my old soccer teammates. It's funny how they all look exactly as I remembered them in 4th grade. Just as I enter the memorial lobby, a tall, faceless man in a pinstripe gray suit stops me, needs to talk. I try in the nicest way possible to convey that I would love to chat more, but I really need to start the gathering music, especially today of all days. But he won't take no for an answer. He just keeps talking, standing in my way, not letting me pass so that I can retrieve my music from the choir room, which is now suddenly no longer in the church, but in an adjacent building. The ushers close and lock the doors to the sanctuary. The lights go out, and I realize I'm late. I'm late to start the gathering music. I hop on my skateboard, which happens to be right next to me. I ride as fast as possible down the hallway, which now connects to my old high school. I try to find my old English teacher's classroom and apologize for being late, but I can't seem to remember the room number. I stop and ask a fellow classmate who points to a large blue door at the end of the hall. I hear music coming out of the classroom, but I'm not sure what it is, can't make it out. I charge into the classroom at full speed only to be stopped in my tracks, realizing that the whole class is taking a test that I was supposed to take. And then the realization hits me the whole time. I was supposed to be taking this English class all semester, but for some reason I forgot I even had it and I didn't show up. My heart's racing, and then I wake up. Yes, this was a dream, and yes, this was an actual dream I had several times, usually on Saturday evenings before worship on Sunday. And while I would be surprised, very surprised if any of you had this specific dream, my guess is many of you can relate to having dreams like this, where the people in the events are real, yet it's all distorted and mixed up. The emotions and panic we feel, that's certainly real. But they're all based on constructs that merely are just creations of our own minds and not really reality at all. I'm fascinated by dreams, and I was always intrigued with the idea of dream interpretation, figuring out what dreams mean. I'm not alone, as dreams and their interpretations play a big part even in our biblical narrative. But this morning, we're not so much talking about the dream part as we are about the waking up part, the rising from our slumber. In the popular science fiction movie The Matrix, Morpheus asked the main character, Neo, "Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? But if you were unable to wake from that dream, how would you tell the difference between the real world and the dream world?" The original Matrix was a groundbreaking movie at the time of its release, and its main premise was this idea of waking up to reality. Friends, it's time we had a little talk. I think the time's upon us. It's time for us to get up, to get centered, and to get moving. Now, let me start off by saying that in no way am I implying that anyone here has been asleep at the wheel. Far from it. As a church, you have all been working extra hard, stepping up, grinding harder than ever in a time of what can feel like insurmountable challenge. you all continue to rise to the occasion, to push to go the extra mile, being living examples of Christ in the world. By getting up or waking up, I'm suggesting that it's time to take a pause, take a beat, to open our hearts and our minds to where God is calling us, and to first stop and to look around. Notice what's real and what isn't. Because in times like this, it can be very easy to lose track. It's like the quote, if we were unable to wake from a dream, how would we know the difference between the real and the dream? Worries, fears, triggers, disorientation, sudden change, and the fears of others, they can make us believe that things are there that aren't really there. And we can also miss some of the beauty that's right in front of us. So let's start with what is real. We are real. We're here and we're together. If we're seeing this service, whether it's here in the sanctuary, whether it's watching online, or maybe even watching the services at a later time, we are gifted with the precious gift of life. We're here and we have a world of opportunities before us to live out the love of Christ. We are the church. We are the body of Christ, the hands and feet of God in the world, and we are called to be Christ in the world. We are hurting. We've lost loved ones. We can't be fully in community in the ways that we'd like to be. We're overworked. We're under-rested. We're tired. We're weary. We're ready for the end of this pandemic, and we're frustrated. We're dealing with a lot of change. The church does not look like it once did. Looking back at live stream services from 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, feels like looking into a portal of a different life. Folks elbow to elbow in the pews, a full choir singing in front of the sanctuary, children dancing in the aisles to the music, and not a mask in sight. Comparatively, the sanctuary feels a little bit emptier, with a large group still continuing to worship online, and that's okay. We don't feel we're quite in a place that's safe enough yet to have full vocal choirs. We are behind on our budget. We are in the midst of a building project started long before anyone ever heard of COVID-19. We are awaiting new pastoral leadership. But here's what else is real. We're here, we're still together, and God moves within us. From the amazing, caring work of all our volunteers, deacons, Sunday school teachers, childcare, so many that I can't even remember all the different ways in which the volunteers here are impacting each other and impacting the community and impacting the world. But we are here and we are making a difference. We are making an impact. What else is real? We're a pretty awesome place to be. We have folks joining the church who've never set foot in the sanctuary before COVID. We have folks who tune into our worship services from all around the world. Our search committee has had many excellent candidates that were ready to commit themselves to be a part of pastoral leadership here. This is a great place to be. Another reality that I believe, that the best is yet to come. I believe with every single part of my being that this church is only beginning to realize its full potential in our community, in our denomination, and in the world. I believe our best years are ahead of us, and I believe that we are standing on the edge of having an impact like we've never had before. And finally, we're not finished. Our work is far from over. Again, from Revelation, we read, "Wake up and strengthen the things that remained, which were about to die, for I have not found your deeds completed in the sight of my God." Our work as a church is just beginning. Now, this verse from Revelation comes from one of the 7 letters addressed to churches in the Roman province of Asia, so this would be Western Turkey today. This particular one to the church in Sardis. And according to New Testament scholar Greg Carey, Revelation's author John describes this vision as speaking to things that must happen soon, for the time is near. It's no minor point, Carey says, nor to be spiritualized to mean something other than what it says. At several points, Revelation reminds those ancient Christians to expect their redemption to come soon. And even though biblical scholars almost universally agree that what was written was not for us as modern-day Christians, but rather for those Christians in those communities, that I believe there can be a lot of comparison drawn between our church and that church in Sardis. The time is now for us to wake up, to build up, and to get moving on that which God calls us, because we have work to do in the world. God is far from being done with us yet. It's time to get up, get centered, and get moving. And very much like we do when we come out of that dream state, we first need to wake up. We need to take stock of what's real, what's around us. After we get up, we need to center, we need to breathe, and then we need to get moving. In the movie The Matrix, much of humanity's minds are connected through a neural network known as the Matrix, a computer program that simulates an artificial reality designed to keep humanity distracted enough not to realize that they're just being used for their resources, which in this case was energy by the machines. Now, what's notable for me about this movie is that it was made before the advent of social media, often critiqued as its own false reality is designed to keep users so focused on interactions with each other, sadly mostly conflictual, that they fail to realize that they're merely just being used to generate income for the platform creators. But just like in our dreams, the people may be real and the emotions we feel may be real. But what happens isn't. Today is Peace Sunday, and as I reflect on what it means to be the church, to be Christ followers, and to be peacemakers in the world today, I see more than ever the importance of waking up and being aware of the reality that surrounds us. While we live in a time with access to information and ways to connect unlike any before, it seems like reality is becoming less and less easy to define. Again, using the example of social media, are my friends really as mean as they are on social media? Are they that way in real life? I mean, where can I go to just get informed of what's going on in the world without trying to be manipulated and buying into someone's agenda? And COVID has forced all of us to isolate, to rely on communication and social networking tools run by those large corporations that are out for profit. It's time for us to get up. It's time for us to awaken and become aware of what is true and what is not. It's time for us to open our eyes so that we can see those glimpses of truth God has for us. What I love about the lyrics to the song that we did for offertory, number one song a couple years ago, is that in our slumber, we're often aware that we're dreaming. We recognize that things aren't quite right, yet there's also a big part of us that we don't want to wake up. For most of us, waking up is challenging. Like I said, I don't really look or feel like that when I wake up. And I think it's a perfect analogy for us as a church at this time. I know many of us describe living in COVID times as feeling like a bad nightmare, but I feel like it's so much more than that. We as humans are meant to be social creatures. We were forced to isolate, to disconnect physically from others, and to rely on those electronic mediums to stay connected. And while we're thankful to have those electronic mediums that have helped us to stay connected in many ways, that feeling of connection, it can just be challenging. Feeling connected to one another, feeling connected to the church, feeling connected to our communities, and even connected to ourselves. It's time we get up, it's time we get real, and it's time we be aware of where God is calling us to wake up to our lives in all its glorious messiness. And after we wake up, especially when waking up from a vivid dream, we need to orient ourselves. I'm usually a bit disoriented too when I wake up, so I need to center. I need to breathe. I need to take stock, figure out what's real. I don't know about you, but in times as crazy as this, we're certainly not short of demands on ourselves. those expectations from others, and those expectations we put on ourselves. But rarely, if at all, we have anyone in our lives that's encouraging us to just stop and take a breath. In a time where it is literally and figuratively hard to breathe, I'd like to encourage us all just to take a moment and breathe. Just take a couple breaths, center yourselves, let's be mindful, and we'll be in the present moment. Centering is a time where we plan where we're going to go from here, to look on the horizon for our destination and start planning how we're going to get there. Through prayer, through open communication, through discernment, we listen to where God is calling us and we follow that call. And that brings us to the last part. After we're awake and we're centered, it's time to get moving. It's time to not just see the path, but to walk the path. And again, this is definitely not to imply that we have not been walking the path the whole time. But often we need to deliberately check in to make sure we're staying on the path, because it can be easy to lose track, to veer off course. We can get disoriented and off balance. We can even fall a few times. But we dust ourselves off. We keep moving. Sometimes our path has obstacles in the road. Some of those obstacles are easy to maneuver, while others, again, can feel insurmountable. Sometimes we need to ask others for help. But when we bring the best of ourselves to the journey, we can do more than we ever thought possible. We can go further than we ever thought possible. And friends, as I said, I believe we are standing on the edge of having an impact unlike we've ever had before. But we've run into a little rain on our journey. And while, like Barbra Streisand, we generally don't let things rain on our parade, it's raining nonetheless. And now is a time that we as a church must come together to weather that storm. And I don't think I'm dreaming when I say that we do need the best of ourselves to do it. So all that to say, if you've been saving anything for a rainy day, now's the time. Now's the time to dig back in those basements, to find those things that we've been keeping for a rainy day and see if we have anything that can help along our journey. Perhaps you've had ideas for new ministries in the past that just didn't pan out. Maybe now's the time to try them. Maybe you've felt a call to volunteer or volunteer in a way that you haven't before. Now's the time. Perhaps you're gifted with a resource, time, talent, money, idea. You've been wanting to put it to good use. Now's the time. Now's the time for us as a church to be bold and courageous, to build each other up, to empower one another. Now's the time for us to remove any change, structures, obstacles, or traditions that might be holding us back, to move forward, and to fully be the embodiment of God's hands and feet in the world, a world so desperately in need. We are here, we're together, we are called by God to be living examples of Christ's love in the world, and God is far from finished with us yet. It's time to get up.